Hi, everyone. Mike Malatesta here, and welcome back to the How Did Happen podcast. On this podcast, I dig in deep with every guest to explore the roots of their success, to discover not just how it happened, but why it matters. My mission is to find and share stories that inspire, activate, and maximize the greatness in you. On today's episode, I've got David Lindsay coming to you from Australia. David is one hell of an inspiration. We talk about doing things the hard way, why you need to reverse engineer big goals, why he's always working on building the tallest building, and the importance of vitality in all parts of your life.
So increasing your vitality is increasing your energy, your zest, your vim, vigor, and passion for what you do. And it's not just in the work environment, it's in life in general.
This guy, it was so much fun to talk to. He's got a great accent, a great message, and this was really a great conversation as well. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Hey, David, thank you so much. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me, Mike. I'm super excited to be sharing my story and messages with you and with the listeners, and hoping we can give them some value they can utilize right from the get-go.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that we will. And while it's the elephant in the room right now with the right to the get-go, why don't you tell everybody where you are calling in from, where we're doing this, where you're from?
Yeah, I'm from Sydney, Australia. So at the moment, it's 5:30 in the morning. Best time of day to get stuff done. Yeah, Sydney, Australia, great place to be. I was born and raised here and live here with my family.
Well, thank you for joining me at 5:30 a.m. Aussie time. That's really cool. I appreciate you getting up. Well, is this early for you, or do you usually get up by now?
No, I'm normally an early riser. Normally I get up at about 3 o'clock and I'm at the gym by 4. Today I missed out on the gym because I didn't want to be all huffing and puffing and not being able to think, but I'll do it after this anyway. Yeah, I've always been an early riser right from when I was a little kid, because I feel I get so much more done while other people are still asleep.
Well, I'm impressed because 3 o'clock in the morning is early. I get up around 6 and I consider myself an early riser, but I've just been blown out of the water by David and his 3 a.m. get up. But yes, you're right. You definitely get a head start on everybody else. That's for sure. And before I tell more people about you, I have to address the boxing gloves that are hanging from your door in back of you. Tell me, yeah. I'm a amateurish box for fun person, and so I'm always interested in people who've got boxing gloves hanging around. Tell me about that. I know we're going to get into your martial arts and stuff later, but are you a boxer as well?
Yeah, I've had a pro boxing fight as well. Oh. That was after I did my cage fighting. So I got into like you said, we'll get into it later. Yeah, I used to do cage fighting. Had a couple of pro boxing matches as well. Realized I'm really at heart, I'm a wrestler, but boxing, I just love competing in everything I do. And the stuff behind me, the boxing gloves, because I was a pro boxer, the painting there from my daughter, she did that when she was about 4. So I just like to bring the personal touches in.
Oh, perfect. How old is your daughter now?
So now she's 11. And she's tall. But I love it. It's funny, every single step of the way with the children, I go, that's my favorite step. That's my favorite part. My favorite, when they first start walking, when they first start talking. And I've loved every step of it along the way.
Well, for those of you who aren't seeing this on YouTube or whatever, that painting from a 4-year-old, it's not like on a piece of paper or something stuck to the wall. That's like canvas. It's like a real legit, it's a big painting.
It's 2 foot by 2 foot.
Yeah, it's real legit. Wow, she's talented.
And we just like to give it all opportunities that we maybe didn't have. And when she used to paint a lot just on paper, and we go, there we go, there's something big, go for gold. And it also kept her occupied, kept her mind going as well. And as she was talking it through, she was explaining all the different things to us and what they meant to us. So that's why I have that up there as well.
Yeah, very nice. Very nice. So, let me tell you a little bit more about David. So David Lindsay, Lindsay, is a speaker, an author, a podcast host. His podcast is called The Dynamic Company Culture Snapshot. A former professional arm wrestler and martial arts cage fighter, a black belt in Wing Chun. Is that how you say that?
Wing Chun? Wing Chun, yeah.
Wing Chun.
Yep.
And what is that? I'm not familiar with that.
It's a form of Kung Fu.
Okay.
So it's just there's a lot of little deviations on just Kung Fu is like an umbrella term. and Wing Chun is one form of Kung Fu.
Got it. And Jiu-Jitsu, purple belt. He has been obsessed about changing the way we view health and vitality through the disruption of how we see the links between fitness and workplace productivity today. He has dedicated his life to living the healthy lifestyle, including getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning. And so he must go to bed early. Sleep must be important to him, and truly believes that anyone can transform themselves through learning his unique system towards improving their vitality. And vitality, it feels like it's going to be a word we use and talk about a lot today.
Yeah.
You can reach David by email, David@davidlindsay, Lindsay, as I said, .com.au. Is there any place else that you like people to connect with you, David?
Yeah, on LinkedIn. I'm most active on LinkedIn. I do probably 3 videos a week on there, just little tips to really help people overcome obstacles, to help them move forward in life. So I do also do Facebook, Instagram, and I've started TikTok as well, just to get views out there, but mostly on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. Okay. That's where I'm most active as well. And I find that a lot of people that are doing the kind of work that you're doing, the kind of work that I'm doing, LinkedIn is sort of a safe place to meet legitimate people, I guess. Like
100%,
real people.
And that's what it is. It's the legitimacy of it. Yeah. Having people that really have substance and want to grow as well.
Yeah, and want to help other people too, want to contribute. It's not, it's less of an ego place, I think, than some of the other places. So
very much so.
So with that, David, I start every one of my podcasts with the same simple question, and that is, how did it happen for you?
That's really an easy question looking back, because I think Steve Jobs said it the best when he said you can't connect the dots looking forwards, but looking backwards, it's abundantly clear. So mine really started back when I was 13, and I used to play rugby league. I'm not the biggest guy going around, but I was very good, very strong. And I'm a Cronulla junior, which is in Sydney, and Cronulla was knocking at my door to sign a contract to play for them at the ripe old age of 14. But then I had South as well. They wanted to come. They wanted me to go across to them. And I was sitting down with my stepdad, and he goes, David, you have 2 choices here. You can either sign with Cronulla, where you're guaranteed to get into the team. So much pressure is going to be put on you because I'm going to be the captain. I'm going to be this. I'm going to be this. I'm going to be the star player in that team. Or you can choose to go to South Sydney, where you have to earn your spot. They're a bigger team. They're a faster team. They're generally more successful team as well, especially in the junior levels. And he goes, you're really going to have to earn your spots there. So I sat down it was probably only really 5 minutes, but it felt like half an hour or an hour. And then I decided that instead of taking the easy route, I took the hard route and went with South Sydney. And that's really where everything has gone off the back of that. I prefer to choose the harder route because with that, it helps with the mindset, and it also weeds out so many people that they do it maybe just for fun. So I went and played with South Sydney. I played with some guys that ended up playing for Australia in rugby league, but I suffered 2 knee reconstructions with that. One when I was 17 and one when I was 20. And after the second one, I went, okay, no more. We've had enough. I was still super competitive, but unfortunately it stopped my rugby league career. Because I was like 30 kilos heavier muscle-wise, there was a bloke who came up and asked me if I'd ever done arm wrestling before, just in the shopping center. And I thought, that's a weird question, but my competitive juices were still going. And he asked me how I go. And I go, I do it for fun, but when I have to pay for drinks with arm wrestle, I go, I don't pay for it. I win and they buy drinks for me. Wow. So he gave me his card and I ended up doing arm wrestling with him. I didn't actually make it to the professional arm wrestling circuit. I was on my way there to the States, but in Corfu in Greece, I was arm wrestling a bloke, turned and I snapped my arm.
Oh, that's a nasty
arm
scar.
Wrestling in there.
Oh.
Yeah. So I was at Corfu for a mate's wedding and was with my girlfriend at the time, which I'm very, very lucky now is now my wife, which after that incident, instead of the rest of our around the world trip, had to come back to Australia and get it operated on. When they operated on, they hit a nerve and my arm dropped. And I actually got a nerve conduction study and they said the nerves are shriveled up and dying. And all of a sudden my world was pulled out from underneath me. I was an athlete, personal trainer, worked at a gym, all of this physical stuff, and yet I couldn't use my arm. And So I thought, who's going to want a trainer that can't use their arm? Who wants an athlete that can't use their arm? My whole world got flipped upside down, shaken around. And luckily, I've got a good support network around me. And I was down in the dumps. I was crying for probably 2 or 3 days. And then I went, man, I've overcome so many obstacles along the way. How can I let a broken arm beat me? So I went and I tried all these different things. And eventually I got movement back. Still being super competitive because at that time I was, 22, 23. I went to a Kung Fu school and where I started Wing Chun, and like everyone, started off as a white belt. So I did Wing Chun, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, kickboxing and wrestling and worked my way up through the ranks with that and wanted more. I didn't want to just do the classes. I wanted to really be able to test it. And that got me into MMA cage fighting, which really led me to meeting my wrestling coach. And he really was another change of direction as well, where we used to spend hours and hours wrestling training, but also spending time talking about philosophies in sports, philosophies in life, and how the two really meld across. And we spoke a lot about mindset. And he goes, there was one throwaway conversation he had where he goes, David, I want you to take a note of the boys. He goes, after coach, I'm the leader there. And I was like 65, 70 kilos at this point. These were monsters. They were 100, 110, 115 kilo, big men. But yet he was 100% correct. And he goes, David, you've got so much more in you than just fighting or so much more in you than just working at a gym. And that sort of steered me one direction. And then I went to see Eric Thomas, where he's my favorite speaker. I was listening to him before we were speaking this morning. And I actually I got up and I did something that I wouldn't normally do because they said sometimes all you have to do is take the first step. So I stood up and I started walking towards the stage. And the ladies that were on there before Eric Thomas smiled and shook their head. And they went, yep. And I went and I won an event to a 3-day speaking boot camp. And then from there, I've just gained momentum and I haven't looked back. My sport, I still am very active physically, mentally, all that sort of stuff with gym. I still manage a gym, but I also do speaking now as well, which has taken my life, my philosophies from sport. And we saw a big gap in the corporate world, like we said, about vitality, especially the last 2 or 3 years. People are looking over their shoulder. They're concerned what's going on. They're concerned with all this other stuff, and they might be a little bit slumpy. So we went, hang on, there's a gap there. Let's fill that gap. Let's raise vitality, because if you raise vitality, you raise morale, productivity, and therefore profitability within the business. And people are happier. They work more. They're willing to do more for people that they care about as well. So that's the short version of where I am now.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for laying you laid a lot down there. I appreciate it. I have some questions on parts of your answer. The first one was the wrestling that started much later then, is what you're saying. That was like something that, or were you doing that as a teenager as well as playing rugby, or did it start? I got the impression that maybe it was something you got into later.
Yeah, 100%. And I was lucky with that, where my grandpa, he was actually a really good wrestler back when he was a kid. So we used to do stuff like that, every time me and my cousins would get together. So just about every week, my grandpa would put us through some wrestling stuff. But it truly became my sport when I was, after football. So you used to do a little bit of wrestling in football because of the tackle, same as in gridiron, you have the tackle. But wrestling was, probably when I was around 23, I really started that just as an individual sport. And the mindset that comes from that, the grit, determination, the knowing that the thing with wrestling for me, which I've taken into speaking, which I've taken into all these other things as well, is it's the art of getting comfortable being uncomfortable. Like being able to calm yourself down. Because if you're in a position and someone's there, they're bigger, they're stronger, and you tense up, you panic, you waste so much energy. You're going to put yourself in vulnerable positions. And it's the same as in a board meeting, or it's the same as when you're up speaking. If I'm there and I'm nervous and I can't control myself, I can't get comfortable being uncomfortable. People can feel that. Yeah. And especially when I'm talking, to 100, 200, 500 people, they feed off my energy. I want it to be positive energy. if it's nervous energy, it's going to change the entire room.
And I'll definitely dig into the speaking more, because I'm really curious about how that evolution has come about. You sort of teased it a little bit, and talking about the fella, I can't remember his name, that you were listening to.
Eric Thomas.
Yeah, Eric Thomas. So I want to get into that later, but I want to go back to this conversation that you and your stepdad had about when you were 14. So if I'm just going to Americanize this a little bit, you were basically at 14 years old, you were being recruited to be a professional rugby player.
Yeah.
And you had these two different options that were recruiting you. Is that normal to be recruiting athletes at the age of 14? First of all, is my first question. And then my second question to that is, where was your head at? I know you were maybe confused about which choice to make, but how heady was that? Were you like, I'm the man, or were you like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening?
It isn't really that common, and it wasn't like a massive contract. It was a little one to sort of sign you up to get you in their system. So it was massive for me at that time, because no one else I knew was getting contracts to play football. No one else I knew was getting contracts to play sport. And I was lucky as well, because I'd only been playing rugby league for 2 seasons before that as well. And again, it comes back to mindset with that, because really, and taking it a couple of steps back, I've got an older brother where he's 18 months older than me. So, and we started off playing soccer, but so that we wouldn't go one here, one there, my mum and dad put me in the same soccer team. So I was always competing against people that were 2 or 3 years older than me. So, when you're 6 coming up against 9-year-olds or 8-year-olds, they're monsters.
Yeah.
But I didn't let them beat me. So it's always been ingrained in me that it doesn't matter how they are, I'm going to find a way. And it's the same, and that sort of has progressed through life as well. So playing rugby league, I've never been the biggest guy, but I've been the most competitive. And with that, I was very chuffed, obviously, that you had the Cronulla Sharks coming, literally knocking on my door to sign a contract. But yeah, it was a conversation. It was just sitting on my bed, and my stepdad goes, there's no guarantees in life. He goes, you don't want things to be given to you on a platter. Earn it, because then it'll have so much more value. And so it was a choice of going to Cronulla, where I was guaranteed to get paid, or not even guaranteed to be in the team at South Sydney. And he said to me, he goes, so do you want to walk around just with it being given to you? He goes, there's not much benefit to that, because then, you tend to rest on your laurels. It's like kids that are incredibly talented, yet don't put the work in. Yeah. That's a waste of talent. I was never talented. I used to train. Well, I still do. I train crazily hard in order to put myself in that position. So it's always been about hard work. And that's where I sort of went, okay, I can take the easy route, or the hard work, the one that's not guaranteed. But if I do win, it'll pay so much more dividends. And so I went that way. And yeah, like I said, that sort of kept going with all parts of my life as well.
Yeah. And when you were 17 and you were experiencing the knee injuries and stuff, can you take me back to that time? And how were you? Were you like, oh, my stepdad was wrong, I should have gone the other way?
I never thought that. Okay. Because of the people that we met through football. Like 17, it was in the semi-finals, and I was playing against Parramatta, where they were one of the favourites to win the competition. And I ran out from dummy half, and I was walking along with the ball, like I hit and was still edging forward, and a bloke took a dive at my back knee, and it just bent back and in. Straight away, I heard the pop. The people in the crowd heard the pop, and they knew that it was done. But I don't regret a thing about that, because like I said, I played with people that have played for Australia. I've learned so many lessons from my rugby league days that go across, like about the importance of teamwork. Because with that under 17s team, even though I didn't get to play in the grand final, that was a team. We won the grand final. We didn't have the best team going around, but we had the strongest team ethic. We had the strongest, tightest knit group, and that's what got us over the line. So, there's no regrets at all that maybe I should have taken the easy path. I don't believe in taking the easy path in any way. because easy come, easy go.
Yeah. The wrestling, arm wrestling. Let's go to arm wrestling first. So I, like you, have never had someone come up to me in a parking lot and say, "Hey, you ever think about arm wrestling?" And you're the first person that I've had on the podcast who is, as far as I know, been a high level arm wrestler. So I'm just going to ask a follow-up question to it. What's the key to being good? Because I don't think it's necessarily strength by itself. So there's got to be a combination of things that make you great at that. I'd love to hear what those are.
Yeah, for sure. There's so much technique in it. People think it's just you grip and go, but because I've got quite short levers, I used to go in for a hook. And it was funny, the first competition I went in, I was a big guy. Back then I was 90, 95 kilos of muscle, which is why he got me in there. But I was coming up against a bodybuilder who was he was even bigger than me again. And we got into this position where we both went for the hook and I went for the roll as well. And our heads hit. But then it all comes back to mindset, because he was strong, I was strong. He looked bigger, or he was bigger. But as soon as we got in that position, we hit, I pinned him. So once I got in his head, it was so easy to pin him time after time. And yeah, so for me, I just used to do a hook and a roll. So you want to get like that and get your body behind it. And what actually happened when I was in Corfu, we were doing it on a bar. So I was stretched out because the bar was tall and then there was a place where you put your drink on. So my ribs were resting on the wood.
Okay.
And I actually got the bloke down to normally where you'd win. And he just had his wrist cocked. And he goes, "You haven't beat me yet." And because you guys were pretty confident I was going to win, they did a countdown. 5, 4, 3. So I went, again, it's my competitiveness, which some people say, "Oh, David, I feel sorry for you, too competitive." Never feel sorry for me. I've got a great life and I love doing what I do. And it's because of my competitiveness. But I turned my body, which that's the first lesson you learn in arm wrestling. That's why there's handles on there to stop you turning your body too much. And it just built up pressure. And I basically Kimura'd myself. And at first I thought I'd broken the bar because it was like a dry piece of wood getting snapped. And then I looked at my arm and my arm was bent in the wrong direction. Knee. So I went, off to the hospital we went.
Oh. And so you don't want to separate your arm, your shoulder from the rest of your body. In other words, it needs to move as one thing. Yeah, so you get all the power. And also what I used to do, like I said, is get behind it and use your body weight as well. Your arm can't touch your shoulder, but you can use it there. And then you want to create a short one for you. And the more you can get their hand away from their elbow, it's just leverage. Yeah, okay.
Then it's easier to push down there than it is to push down from there.
And I've watched a few.
There's a lot of technique.
Yeah, I've watched a few arm wrestling videos on YouTube. I forget the guy that I was watching, but it came across my feed, so I watched a couple of them. And you talked about getting in the other person's head. He's like a talker. Like he would talk.
Dan Leverett.
Yeah.
I love watching
guy,
him.
Right? But yeah, he's talking to the other guy the whole time, to try to get into his head.
Yeah.
Is that the strategy that you employed as well, or was yours just like your eyes, your look, or what did you do to because it's a very powerful nonverbal, well, it can be a very powerful nonverbal or verbal advantage, right?
100%. Like the best example I've saw of that in arm wrestling was I can't remember his name off the top of my head because it was many, many years ago, but a German arm wrestler, where he'd have this really skinny arm and then he was born with a deformity and he'd have a jacket on. He'd have the sleeve rolled up on the skinny arm and then he'd take his jacket off and he had just an enormous right arm. Like they said, if he was proportionate, because he used to arm wrestle in the lightweight division, if he was proportionate to the size of that arm, he would have been, 6 foot, I think it was something like 6'3", 240 pounds, just because it was so enormous. But yeah, it wasn't so much, I just would let my actions speak, where I'd get in there. And yes, you have that level of gamesmanship going on, but I'm not such a talker. But I like Dan Leverett. I love watching his videos. And also there's a guy called the Arm Wrestling Whisperer, where he's just a little bloke, but he has his technique is just so good. And he's there talking to people as they go along. Okay. And he has complete control, and he tells them how to make it better for them. He goes, put pressure here, put pressure. I can feel that. I can feel that. Don't turn your body. Keep looking at your hand, all that sort of stuff. And it's all just getting in their head.
And this injury that you had, you said you lost nerve condition or something. How did it? Tell me how it came back. What did you end up finding that worked to get it back? Yeah,
because initially, like I said, I got a nerve conduction study where they put needles in your arm and they send electrical currents through to make sure that the nerves are still firing. And what personally I think it was a misdiagnosis, because all they did was they hit the nerve, which shut it off, but it didn't kill it. They didn't sever it. But during that time, I didn't know that at the time. So I was doing everything I could. I'd change my diet. I went and see homeopath, naturopath. I was doing anything I could. Physios, getting this ointment to rub on, stuff to eat that can help improve your nerves, all that sort of stuff. Because I don't like leaving things to chance. I line up everything I can. And it's the same as with speaking. I line up everything I can. It's with sport, with business. You don't just close your eyes and shoot. You line it all up and then you knock it down, and it's like a domino effect. So because that was my life. That was who I was as a 22-year-old, for it to be taken out from underneath me. And then there was a switch. I went and go, I'm going to beat this. I don't care what they say. I'm going to overcome this. And that's what's happened many times. Like, my wife had a terrible accident. She shattered a femur, and we went in with that same mindset. Of course you can go sit in the corner and feel sorry for yourself,
right?
But that doesn't help anyone. What can we do to move forward? What can we do to make the most out of this situation? Because you can't undo stuff that's happened. I couldn't undo my broken arm. She couldn't undo her accident, which caused her leg to be shattered. So what can we do to come out better than we went in?
What happened to her for that to happen?
Yeah, she was on her way to work, and she used to ride a motorbike, and she got hit by a car, went and flipped. And I was actually all things considered, we were extremely lucky. I got a phone call from her not long after she left, and I thought it was too quick for her to be at work. And she goes, David, I've been hit by a car, and I think I've broken my leg. And she brings this up all the time, that I was hoping that she was going to, yes, been hit. Obviously that wasn't a lie, but I thought that she might have been exaggerating with her broken leg. But like I said, I was very lucky that she called me up, and I got there. I managed to pack up our daughter, because she was 7 months old at the time, and get to that place just before or just after the ambulance. And she was still in the gutter with her leg bent in a very, very bad way. And yeah, she shattered her leg. And what I'm just like that.
Oh, he's showing me the x-ray. Yeah. So it's broken in multiple places. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I like to say, shattered. So yeah, it was a very long recovery. I had to have 6 months off work to look after both my wife and daughter. But again, we didn't sit in the corner and go, poor us. No, it was time that we were never going to get back again. So we really built a stronger relationship as a result of that.
Okay. Well, not good for you for both having gone through such serious things, but good for you for both overcoming and for having one another.
100%.
During it, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, vitality, you mentioned it. We're going to talk about it. I want to start first with how you define it, because I want to make sure people understand what vitality means to you.
Yeah, because for me, it's easy. It's increasing vim, vigor, and passion. Having energy, not energy just to get by, but energy to go above and beyond. Because in my talk as well, I talk about vitality, and it actually comes from the Latin word vitalis, meaning of or belonging to life. So it means having life, having energy, because you have a look at your vital signs. So vitality, and it's a pulse rate, your respiratory and breathing, and your blood pressure. If you don't have these vital signs, you're dead. So increasing your vitality is increasing your energy, your zest, like I said, your vim, vigor, and passion for what you do. And it's not just in the work environment, it's in life in general. Because it'd be a world of difference if I was to be here and go, thanks for having me, Mike. I really appreciate, as opposed to Mike, thank you very much for having me. I'm loving this so far. And just the energy, it comes through the screen. It comes through the audio as well. That's what it is. Yep.
Okay. Thank you for that. What is Vim? I'm not familiar with Vim. Is that the first thing you said? Vim?
Yeah, Vim, vigor, passion. So it's really just, like having a zest for life, being upbeat.
I'm gonna start using that, Vim. That's not something I don't think I've heard of that before. So thank you for that, David.
My pleasure.
So as far as like coaching mentality, right? So I'm assuming you're a speaker, you have your gym, so you're basically coaching people all the time. Right? But when was the time that you thought to yourself, I am a coach. That's like who I am, if you define yourself that way.
Definitely. And it came from that conversation that I had with my wrestling coach. Like it was many, many years ago. But before that, I never ever thought of myself as, anyone special. I never thought that I had the authority, that I had the power to change people's lives. And then that throwaway conversation, and then everything else has really built that momentum along the way. Like even when I first started speaking, I went, who's going to want to listen to me? I'm not Eric Thomas. I'm not a Les Brown. I'm not a Tony Robbins. Who am I? And then again, it's building that momentum. And I go, no, I know that I have a story. I know that I have a method to share with millions of people out there. So what's the best platform for this? In the gym, I can reach 1-to-1. Coaching, I can reach 1-to-1. In a classroom, I can reach 1-to-30. In speaking, I can reach 1-to-thousands. With a podcast, I can reach 1-to-thousands. Right. So just a bigger impact you can have as well.
How long? So this really fascinates me because I have similar thoughts, and I think maybe a lot of people listening have similar thoughts where they want to do something, but they are comparing themselves to other people who are doing something like that successfully. You mentioned Eric Thomas or Tony Robbins or something. And it's rather than it being an inspiration to do, not to become them, but to become what you can become, your own sort of way, they say, well, I can't, it's too hard to be like, what do I have that they don't have? Sort of like what you were saying. How long did it take you to work your way through that, David? Like, you've got a lot of confidence. Obviously you always take the hard way. You have all of these things maybe naturally built into you, but I'm
not naturally.
But still it's okay. So good. It's not natural. So help me understand how you worked your way through it.
Yeah. And it doesn't happen overnight. And that's what many people go, they have this expectation that, within 2 months of speaking, I've got this keynote, I'm going to be doing this, and this. 2 months later, they don't have anything. And then they go, oh man, I tried, but I got nowhere. You don't get anywhere in 2 months. Because think about when you go to a gym, you don't go and start with 140 kilos on the bench press or say 250 pounds on the bench press. You don't start off with that. You start off with just the bar. And then gradually, it's a slow incremental process. You go millimeter by millimeter. The same with wrestling. You're working your way up millimeter by millimeter to get to the end goal. And what a lot of people, and I did this as well, was think that those guys are so far away that how can I get there? Right. But then what you do is you break it down, you reverse engineer stuff. So it's not about being intimidated. It's about being inspired by them. Like how did they get there? They weren't always those people. They put a lot of hard work into it. And like you said before, that like I was born with this, and no, I wasn't born with anything. Like I said right at the start, I wasn't born talented. I used to just train hard using my body, using body weight. With football, with fighting, with arm wrestling, I put myself into those uncomfortable situations because that's where growth happens. And especially, and it comes back time and time again to wrestling, because that's how I could overcome bigger guys. Is I know that if I can beat their driver, which is their mind, I can control them. I just get them in a position and I put them in uncomfortable positions. They can't handle it. The driver, their mind disappears, and you feel their energy and you feel their power sucked from them. But it's about constantly doing it. Like I've been speaking now for 7 or 8 years. And back in 2020, I was in the process of going full time with the speaking. And then, COVID hit. The whole world got shaken upside down, but I still didn't stop. During COVID as well, it opened up so many possibilities. I'm able to speak to you in the States from Australia. I've spoken in the States, in India, in Canada, in Singapore, in England, in all around the world from the comfort of my own home, because crisis creates opportunities. And we've just been through a massive crisis. What opportunities can you take from that, and how can you grow as a result?
And I've heard people say, no one's born at the top of the mountain. And I don't know if you've heard that or not, but as you were talking through, going from a spot of, how can I ever do what, these people do? You forget about, or it's easy for you to forget that person who is now you're looking at and you're saying, well, that person's at the top of the mountain. How could I ever get to the top of the mountain? Well, that person started just like you at the bottom of the mountain.
Yes.
And probably thought the exact same thing. Like, how can I be a Zig Ziglar? How could I be a Earl Nightingale? How could I be, some of these wonderful older, previous generation speakers? And they started right where you are. So your advice about reverse engineering is like, okay, so nobody starts at the top of the mountain, but people get there. So how do I look at all the steps that they took in order to get there, and then take myself back to the step where I am right now and say, okay, the next step is, this, and then the next one after that, and then the next one after that. And then you're on your way, right? It's like the journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of that comes back to, and again, using sporting terminology, or it's come across into the corporate world, is to get coaching or mentoring from people that have been there and done that. Like I said, I won the 3-day boot camp to a speaking coaching course, and I had no idea of speaking as a profession besides, the top dogs, but I did really, really well. And then I found a course online. It wasn't an online course, it was face-to-face, but it was a speaking course, and I ended up doing a 12-month speaking course with that company. And that's where it started to build momentum. And that was, like I said, 7 or 8 years ago. But it's just that I'm so tenacious. I'm like a dog at a bone. I'm not going to let it go. I'll put in too much hard work, too much time, effort, dedication to just throw my hands up. Because, there's the cartoon of someone with a shovel or a pickaxe, where they've got so far and then they turn around walking away, and they're just millimeters away from diamonds. Oh, yeah. And I don't want to live my life with regrets. I don't want to go, if only I had have done this, because that's with injuries. Like I said, you can't undo the broken arm. You can't undo the broken leg. You can't undo the knee reconstructions. But what can I do to use that to move forward? How can I use that discomfort, that time, to come out better than I went in?
And what would you say, David, is the most unique thing about you that resonates with people that you're speaking to or coaching, for example?
I think because, like, of my background, I didn't come from a rich family. My parents split up when I was younger. There's nothing special about me. And I think that's really what tends to resonate with people, because I am relatable. And that's what, like, I did a video yesterday on LinkedIn where I talk about there's 2 ways to create the tallest building in the city. One is to knock everything down and build a 1-story building. The rest is to build the tallest building. And the great thing about building the tallest building as well is, yes, you need to create foundations. That's what you have to work on first and foremost, but it's showing other people around you what's possible. Because if the people that are close to me, they know I'm David, I'm a knockabout sort of bloke, but yet I can create this building. They can use a blueprint of what I've done, and you model their behavior. That's what you can do, really, like with these great people, with the Tony Robbins, with the Eric Thomas, Les Brown, all those sort of guys. You reverse engineer it and then you use systems that they do. And like Bruce Lee, you take what works, you discard what doesn't. And that's a great way to go about things. But also with building the tallest building, what my goal is as well is to invite people up to the top floor, to enjoy the scenery as well along the way. So, you know, it's people say it's a lonely place at the top. It's not. It's lonely if you want it to be lonely. You can bring people along with you as well. And, you know, you have your own team, which is up there. And that to me is where, again, it comes back to sports. You can only go so far and so fast by yourself, but with a team, you can really do it a lot faster, go a lot further. And it's a lot more fun as well doing it when you're surrounded with people.
And I agree with that, with your sentiment there, that it's only lonely at the top if you want it to be. But I think the reason a lot of people are lonely at the top, and I was one of those people for a long time and maybe still am a little bit, I think one of the main reasons is you don't want to show that you are a real bloke. Like you said, you don't want to show that you're just a real vulnerable person like everybody else. You don't want to appear weak. And so rather than...
It's a vulnerability.
Yeah. So rather than risk that, you build a wall around yourself, and then you say, wow, it's really lonely here. Sometimes you get what you ask for.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Do you have a relationship with your dad?
Yeah. Okay. I still do. He still lives not too far down the road. I spoke to him 2 days ago, and it was his birthday. So it's as I've got older, my relationship with him has got a lot better as well. So like I said, my parents split up when I was 10, 11, 12, around about that age. And then, so I still have a relationship with my dad. My stepdad is the one that got me into rugby league. He passed away, 11 years ago now.
Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that. I'm always curious about that kind of thing, and whether, so it sounds like it took a while for you to get back into wanting or having a relationship with your dad. So it was more just circumstance. Okay. That's all. I look at it. Looking back at stuff, I go, I still don't know what happened. I don't want to know, because, I just live how I live. Yeah. And I get along really well with my mum and dad, and they're both extremely supportive. And my wife especially, she's super supportive. She didn't want me to fight, but yet she was super supportive of fighting. She was there. She was my biggest cheerleader. She doesn't understand speaking, or she doesn't understand that sort of stuff, but she's incredibly supportive. And, that's like I said before about having that network around when I broke my arm, when she broke a leg. And it's not just us as a family, as me, my wife, and my daughter, but our close friends, my wrestling coach, my buddies from work. These people, we really help each other through both good and bad times. Did your wife think you might have had a screw loose or something when you said you wanted to
she still
cage
thinks
fight?
That. Yeah. She still thinks that.
Okay.
Maybe a bit right.
Yeah. When you're speaking to people, when you're talking to them, do you consider yourself motivational? Do you consider yourself inspirational, or do you consider yourself something else? And when you're done talking to somebody, David, or a group or whatever, what do you want them to do? What do you want them to do as a result of experiencing you?
Because I believe really it's a little bit of A, a little bit of B, a little bit of C. So yes, motivational, yes, inspirational. Because when I'm talking about raising vitality on the stage as well, I have to have, you don't have to have, I choose to have that energy as well, so that it really comes across. I get them participating so that they can be part of it. But what I'm doing, I'm just giving them tools. Okay. So like I said, I got my 5 steps towards improved vitality. So I'm giving them the tools, and then it's about them putting it into action. There's things that they can put into action as soon as we finish from there. Because I talk about the power of music, the power of posture. So that I'll run through the 5 steps quickly. So it's snap, creating routines and rituals to snap into action. Napping for peak performance. We're not designed to work 24/7, 365, but with people burning out, we need to nap for peak performance. And then tapping. So with fighting, I can get caught in an armbar. I can fight it to a certain point and I can tap. Once they tap, they let go. I go back to my coaches and we learn what to go about it. Why did I get caught in that armbar? And then we learn, grow, and evolve. So especially now is a perfect time to try new things, to be an innovator or an early adapter. And also don't worry if it fails. If it fails, you tap, you learn, grow, and evolve. And then the fourth one is clap, is celebrating. We see it all the time in sports, but very rarely in business, because when you celebrate, it's about bringing the team together. Like I mentioned before, when I was playing for South, we didn't have the best team. We had a good team, but not the best team. But we had the tightest knit group that you couldn't possibly have. And we wanted to do it for each other. It's the same in work. So celebrate. And then the fifth one is recap, all about continuous, never-ending improvement. And that's in everything we do. And as a coach, I want problems. As a coach, I need problems, but we also need solutions. And this doesn't come from top down, but more importantly, from bottom up, from the people that are on the ground floor, from the players, from the floor staff of employees, the people that are in amongst it. And then, because if, say for me, for example, if I'm the same speaker in 6 months as I am today, that's a waste of 6 months. Right. If my football team or my fighting is the same team in 6 months as they are today, that's a waste of 6 months. It's the same in the corporate world. If your team's the same in 6 months as you are today, again, that's a waste of 6 months. So it's all about that continuous, never-ending improvement.
I like that the tapping, because you're basically, if I got it correctly, you're basically saying, okay, so not winning isn't losing, not winning is learning, right? So I don't win. 100%. I'm not going to win because the guy's got me in a spot where I can't get out of that spot. So I tap, and then you go back to your coaches and you basically look at it as, okay, well, I don't want that to happen again. So what would I have to do differently in order for that not to happen, as opposed to, oh man, I got beat and I give up. Yeah, right.
Throw your hands up.
Yeah. It's
and
almost
I talk about companies, that were tapping and evolving but stopped. Like, because you look at Nokia phones, they were enormous. Yeah. They had over 40% of the entire mobile phone, even after the introduction of smartphones. But they stopped tapping and evolving because they were too invested in their Symbian system. You have Kodak, where their money was in film. They actually had the first patent to the digital camera, but they left that on the shelf. You have Blockbuster, Toys R Us are a few examples. Then ones that are constantly tapping and evolving, moving forward. You have Meta, former Facebook, or that. You have Tesla, and then you have McDonald's. And I love using McDonald's as an example because everyone knows McDonald's. But it doesn't mean that those companies have never failed. But they fail fast, they fail forward, they tap and evolve. Because I talk about with McDonald's, McPizza, McHotdog, McSpaghetti, McFettuccine, and McAfrica. Because a lot of people aren't even aware of this entire list. They've got a huge amount of products that failed, but they tried, they failed fast, they learned from it, but they failed forward. So you tap and evolve.
Yeah, and the tapping thing is like a lot of business owners too. They don't tap when something's not working. They don't tap out. They just want to grit through it, right? I know this is going to work. I know this is going to work. And you keep pouring time and resources.
Yeah, and that's why I use armbar as an example, because like I can fight it to a certain point. I can try and get it back, but you have to know that there's a point of no return. There's a point, if he has me locked out, he's got his legs across here that's holding me down. All he has to do is pop his hips, and either my elbow is going to pop or my arm's going to break. So you get to a certain point and you have to know when to tap. Yes, fight it. Don't just give up, but know when that point is. So you have the innovators, early adapters, then everything has that apex, knowing when is it time to jump off to the next thing.
Speaking of next thing, what is your next thing as an athlete?
As an athlete? So what I do, I coach people with that. Like I've got a mate, and a lot of it, I've been lucky enough to coach first grade footballers, guys that have won championships, guys that have played for Australia. I've helped a couple of Olympians as well with their training. One of them should have got the gold in the 2000 Olympics, but got disqualified. And like they're gold medalists in the Commonwealth Games, gold medalists and silver medalists in walking. But then what I do is I'm concentrating mostly on the speaking. I keep myself fit. I still manage a gym and do a little bit of training. I've really stepped out of that more so and into the speaking. And we do have a 12-month online course for corporates, for the middle management. So it's a 3 pillars to high performance, where because the middle management, they get pressure from top to bottom and bottom to top.
Yeah,
so
sure.
We're trying to strengthen that middle part because, as they say, you're only as strong as the weakest link in the chain. And the middle management have impact with so many people. They have impact with all of the floor staff. So if we can improve them, well, the company will go so much better as well.
And I've also heard, and tell me if this is your experience, I've also heard that the middle managers are the ones who have the biggest impact on employee retention and how people feel about the company. So the middle management either forces people out or they, make or break. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Because they're the linchpin. And that's why we decided to go specifically for the middle management, because the C levels, the top guys, they have their own individual coaches. So they might have that. But then the middle management, like you said, they've got their impact with all of these people on the ground floor. If you have, say, 10 or 20,000 people, these middle management have impact with every single one of those people. So if we can positively affect that group, they're going to positively affect the people below them, but also the people above them. And it's just a great way in. And they're often the neglected people.
They're often, they maybe neglected, and they're in the toughest spot because like you said, there's pressure or expectation from up, there's pressure and expectation from below. You know, it could come from either direction at any time, and you have to be able to navigate. Yeah, or both. Yeah. Good point. Good point. David, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been really a lot of fun getting to know you. I've learned some new words too, and I've learned some new attitudes. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you would like to leave with me or with the audience before we call this a wrap?
No, not that I can think of. Just if any of your listeners, if they would be more interested in finding out more about my 5 steps towards improved vitality, as we mentioned before, how they can get in contact through email or through LinkedIn. Yeah, and I'm looking at actually doing a tour over there. I think I'm going over there in October, and then again early next year to do a couple of speaking events. But yeah, I really want to get over to the States to make a bigger impact, because Australia, I've been up and down the East Coast. We just don't have the population that you guys have over there.
Well, I think you'll be a big hit because one, you've got the vitality. You definitely have that. You've got the stories. You've got a genuineness about you. You're funny, you laugh, and you're serious. You know, I want, the hard way is my way, and I'm not going to let something get in my way. And people, I think, can't get enough of that. Plus, you got the accent, and Americans love. They love everybody with an accent. Believe me. So I think it'll be a big hit. And for those of you listening, you don't have to wait, because you can get David just like I've got him here. You can get him. He does Zoom presentations or does whatever platform you have, and he can make a huge impact just like this. You don't even have to. Doesn't even have to be live and in person. It can just be live.
It can be, and like I've done it before, because I know with Australia as well. We have crazy time difference. I've got up and I've done the talk at midnight so that it could go to Paris. I got up and I did it at 3:00 in the morning to hit the right place. I'm willing to do that, because I'm up at 3:00 anyway. Yeah. So getting up a little bit earlier doesn't make any difference, just to make an impact.
Well, I will say that I've that's the only part of our discussion where I've been man, 3:00 in the morning. I don't know if I want to. I don't know if I want to do that.
Yeah, I'll leave that to those.
But everything else I've been totally on board with. So
yeah,
David Lindsay, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your great story. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, no, my pleasure, Mike. And I hope the listeners got something from this. And like I said, there's things that you can take away straight away. Utilize the power of music, to really increase your energy levels, posture pose, all that sort of the good stuff. But Mike, thank you very much for having me on.
I'm going to be working on my Vim. So yeah. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to the show. And before you go, I just have 3 requests for you. 1, if you like what I'm doing, please consider subscribing or following the podcast on whatever podcast platform you prefer. If you're really into it, leave me a review, write something nice about me, give me 5 stars or whatever you feel is most appropriate. Number 2, I've got a book. It's called Owner Shift: How Getting Selfish Got Me Unstuck. It's an Amazon bestseller. And I'd love for you to read it or listen to it on Audible or wherever else, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. You can get it everywhere. If you're looking for inspiration that will help you unlock your greatness and potential, order or download it today so that you can have your very own copy. And if you get it, please let me know what you think. Number 3, my newsletter. I do a newsletter every Thursday, and I talk about things that are interesting to me, and or I give more information about the podcast and the podcast guests that I've had and the experiences that I've had with them. You can sign up for the podcast today at my website, which is my name, MikeMalatesta.com. You do that right now, put in your email address, and you'll get the very next issue. The newsletter is short, thoughtful, and designed to inspire, activate, and maximize the greatness in you.